Good morning, it's Thursday, April 30, and this is the Brussels Playbook Podcast. The vibe today is on edge as the European Central Bank meets to discuss whether to raise interest rates, but has no good options. Also on the pod, Europe has a fuel blind spot, and officials are scrambling to figure out how much energy the EU actually has in storage. And later, politicians walk into classrooms and, well, they say the wrong thing. Ian, it's you, Ian
Speaking
Wishart.
of saying the wrong thing.
Ian Wishart is back with me today. I'm Zoya Sheftalovich. This is Ian Wishart.
We haven't been together for, about 3 weeks, have we?
Something like that. And in that time, all you've managed to do is tank the pod by telling people you hate halloumi.
Word has reached me you've been comparing yourself to Ursula von der Leyen.
And I've been comparing you to Antonio Costa. We're like the dynamic duo of the Politico Tower.
Should we get on with it?
I guess so. The European Central Bank, the ECB, meets today, Ian. That's the group that sets interest rates for the Eurozone. Did you know that?
I did know that, yeah, because I used to report on the ECB and all things economic. Nothing ever seems to change, though, and it looks like they're going to wait and see this week.
Yeah, because inflation is high. People are worried about the price of fuel and the way that that's affecting everything else as well. But the lever of raising interest rates is a pretty significantly harmful one for a lot of households. So it's a bit of a scary one to pull.
People have obviously got used to inflation over the past, half a decade. Obviously, prices have rocketed. We talked when this podcast started a couple of months ago about the rocketing price of coffee, didn't we? But everything has gone up. Everybody knows that. Everybody listening to this podcast knows it's gone up.
Totally. And businesses are struggling because consumers obviously have a certain idea in mind about what they might pay for a coffee, what they might pay for a soft drink, for a sandwich.
Anything,
really. And then they go into a shop, they go into a supermarket, eggs are through the roof. You know, Donald Trump won an election based on the price of eggs is what I've heard. So it's a real worry for a lot of people, and the banks have to respond to it one way or another.
What I was going to say was people, I think, assumed that this rocketing inflation would stop after Ukraine. I mean, that's what really triggered this, was basically having to pay for COVID and then suddenly the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and that sent prices through the roof and things were beginning to stabilize. Everybody was getting a bit more satisfied with how things were going, and now inflation seems to be going up again. Looking at inflation expectations, they expect inflation to go up 4% over the next year.
Yeah, the they is the ECB, but it's also consumers, it's also people. There is a general kind of mood of, well, this is going to be high.
And that's double the rate that they thought it was going to be before the Iran war.
Pretty much, and the target is 2%, so this is well above target. I think the estimate for pre-Iran war was around about 2.5%, but now we're looking at 4%, could be even higher in some sectors, because when you're looking at things like energy prices, obviously, they're up 50%.
So when inflation is so high, it's then up to the ECB to decide to raise interest rates or not, and it's a really difficult balancing act because you want to raise interest rates to get inflation under control, but you don't want to do it too much because then it becomes too expensive for people to pay back debt. Yeah,
and it tanks the economy and people don't have confidence, so they stop buying things, they kind of tighten their belts, and that can further impact the economy. And the ECB, they meet every 6 weeks for one of these rate-setting meetings. And this latest one, which is happening later today, is going to be a bit of a doozy because essentially what's going to happen is they have to decide for the next 6 weeks what they're going to do. And, you know, when this all started, when this inflation crunch started, everyone was saying, well, this war is going to be a quick one. Donald Trump is going to be in and out. They'll do whatever it is they need to do, and then it'll be over. Now we're looking at the fact that it has been significantly longer than initial expectations said it was going to be. Trump keeps, essentially saying, oh, maybe it'll be over next week. Maybe it'll be longer. It's very hard to predict. And so when you have to set the rates for the next 6 weeks, you have to make that determination what you're going to do. It makes it a difficult position you find yourself in, because if you don't pull the lever quickly enough, that's a long time between drinks.
Our colleagues who follow the ECB think that Christine Lagarde and the Governing Council won't raise interest rates today, but they'll keep the threat of it alive. And that's kind of signaling to the markets that we're watching, and inflation goes too high, we will do something, but not quite going that far that they're pushing the button straight away. Yeah,
but the danger of something like that is if you cry wolf too many times, then that can really mess with things.
Yeah, and we saw that argument being made throughout those months after the Ukraine invasion and to get inflation down.
Yeah, and I remember at that time there were criticisms made of the ECB that it didn't go quickly enough. And not just the ECB, but also the Bank of England and various other central banks, that they didn't go quickly enough in addressing the crisis and figuring out that this was going to be a long-lasting inflationary kind of trend. And so there was criticism back then. So I'm sure that's something that's weighing on their minds today.
We've talked a lot about the Eurozone, the Europe sluggish economy, really, and this all feeds into that. If people are expecting inflation now at 4% over the next year, businesses saying they'll raise prices, business confidence dropping, this all plays a part. And you add inflation to that mix and it just makes it very difficult for any politician to make the economy better.
Yeah, things are looking pretty gloomy at the moment. So we'll see what happens today, but expectations are it's going to be a wait and see, do nothing for now. Leading on from that last story a little bit, our colleague Ben Munster has a piece out this morning where he looks at the shortage of fuel around Europe. And actually, it's not even so much about the shortage of fuel, but more about the fact that the EU doesn't really know how much fuel and oil and gas and so on is in storage.
Does anybody know?
Nobody knows, because it's a tricky thing to gauge. And there are some reporting requirements. So the European Commission, for instance, has this mandated rule where the countries around the EU have to tell, there's like a special register and you have to declare how much gas you've got in storage. The EU monitors that because you're supposed to have 90% by the time winter rolls around. But when it comes to other things like jet fuel, like oil, so forth, that's a little bit trickier to tell how much is in storage.
So let's zoom out just a bit. We're talking about this because of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which accounts for about 20% of
the world's
oil
supply.
The world's oil supply. And that obviously having a knock-on effect. And when the supply of oil is so restricted, you need to know how much you've got and how much you've got left. I think Ursula von der Leyen said yesterday that the Iran war means around 500 million euros a day in extra energy costs.
Yeah, and that's everything, Ian. That's flights are more expensive. Driving your car is more expensive. Your deliveries might not arrive for ages because we don't know if there's going to be fuel on a plane that's meant to be taking your cargo around Europe. And we've seen that.
All this adds to the higher inflation that we were just talking about as well.
Exactly. It's all linked and all quite tricky for the EU to deal with. And of course, that just adds another difficult element for companies to have to deal with when they're trying to plan ahead. And we've seen the real world effects of this. I mean, Lufthansa has just cancelled, 20,000 flights for short haul routes, saying that they weren't profitable. A bunch of airlines are doing that all around the world. And summer holidays are coming up, so people are going to feel this for real very soon.
And there's an interesting quote actually in Ben's story today from Tobias Meyer, the chief executive of DHL, who said, in Europe, we have visibility and commitments into May and June, but what happens beyond that is hard to forecast. There are strategic reserves, but visibility on how much has been drawn down is limited.
Yeah, that's pretty stark when the boss of DHL, which is responsible for loads and loads of parcels being flung around Europe, when he doesn't really know beyond June, that's pretty interesting.
The reason that we don't know is because so much of it sits in private hands. There doesn't seem to be any coordination across different countries and different territories and different organizations.
Yeah, so there's like some input from the International Energy Agency. Eurostat has some of this data and it does periodic updates, but there's nothing in real time. And for instance, we were talking about this gas rule where you've got to report how much gas you've got in reserves, you've got to reach a certain target. Well, those stats are 2 months behind effectively because you report at the end of the month for data from 2 months ago. So for instance, they'd be reporting right now for data from February. And that was, feels like a lifetime ago.
Well, it's interesting that there was the meeting last month where ministers from Belgium, the Netherlands and Spain said they wanted the EU to coordinate more real-time monitoring. And Greece went so far as to say the Commission should set up a WhatsApp group or a Signal group to try to coordinate the numbers.
Well, good luck to Greece because, as we know, the Commission has been warning people that those things are getting hacked. I think that would be, if I was Russia and I was looking for something to hack. It would be
quite useful information, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it might be looking for something a little more secure than a WhatsApp or Signal group, but nonetheless, I think it shows the extent to which this is a huge concern for countries, particularly countries. Greece is a big shipping country. Belgium, port city,
I would like to know, actually, though, are people not booking their summer holidays because prices have gone up and flights are being cancelled? Are people staying here because of this crisis? I don't know the answer to that. Are people just not flying now?
Well, I think this is a question for the WhatsApp link in our show notes, folks.
What a good idea.
I think so. What are you doing? Are you planning your summer holiday around the fact that you might need to take the bus there?
Liège is nice at this time of year.
I'll get a waffle.
Speaking of waffles, shall we go on to the third story?
Yeah, let's do it. Ian, third story. This one's a fun one for me. It's about politics.
Even more fun than inflation and jet fuel.
Well, I don't know how it's possible, and yet here we are. Our colleague Paul Dallison, a birthday boy, by the way, it's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Paul. He's written a fun little story today about the classic politician child photo op going wrong.
Yeah, and should we talk about why we're talking about this today?
I guess we probably should. It's because the UK ambassador to the US, Christian Turner, recently visited a high school and didn't go quite as he may have anticipated it might. He brought up Epstein. Yeah, the topic that I'd like to talk to all children about, Jeffrey Epstein, renowned sex offender, and it seems classroom conversation starter.
Yeah, he told a group of students it was extraordinary that the Epstein scandal hadn't touched anybody in the US, while it had brought down his predecessor, Peter Mandelson, and potentially the Prime Minister. He's wading into domestic politics like that. There's something about talking to groups of school children where politicians and diplomats, they let their guard down.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time it's happened. Just this week, on Monday, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz gave his fiercest criticism of Trump on record. He basically said that the US is being humiliated by the regime in Tehran and that Trump lacks a strategy to end the conflict. And he chose to deliver that criticism at a school in Marsburg.
The Iranians are clearly stronger than expected, and the Americans clearly have no truly convincing strategy in the negotiations either, Merz said. It's weird that politicians, they would never dream of saying that, in press conferences or in interviews on television, but as soon as you get a group of school children in front of you, everything just sort of goes to pot.
I think it's nice, actually. I think they should speak the truth to children.
They do, obviously, and it's where you get the actual truth from. Do you remember, was it Dan Quayle, the vice president of the US in the early 90s? He corrected somebody's spelling on a blackboard and changed it, put an E on the end of potato because he said that's how potato is spelt.
I was really right on Dan Quayle's side because I'm a giant grammar nerd myself until you said the thing where he added an E to potato and now I'm upset about it. Maybe he's only ever seen potatoes written.
That's the only plausible explanation, isn't it?
One can hope. Ian, this week, you had Halloumi-gate last week. We had Shopgate this week.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of Halloumi-gate,
yeah.
Do you know I had a spy on the ground in Cyprus? Yeah, that's how I operate.
Okay.
Us Ukrainians, spies everywhere. I had a spy on the ground in Cyprus who told me that they had force-fed you proper Cypriot halloumi and you liked it.
We were in Nicosia, and I have to say it was quite tasty. I take it all back.
Oh my God, is this happening? I've never heard you take anything back.
I'm taking this back.
What you're saying is you were wrong. Halloumi's the best.
I wouldn't go that.
Favorite
I wouldn't
cheese?
go that far. No.
Screw British cheddar.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
No. Well, it's the Irish presidency next, so if I say I don't like Guinness before that, then we'll keep on going. Anyway, you were going to tell us about shops.
I was going to tell you about shops because Nick and I were talking earlier this week on Monday about how much we were excited that Belgian shops might stay open on a Sunday and later.
Fascinating podcast.
Don't you sledge us? Yeah, we had a great podcast. And let me tell you, we got a deluge of text messages on the WhatsApp line, voice notes. There were 4-part voice notes. It was a literal 4-part voice note, Ian, with people telling us what they thought about our capitalist ways. Well, there's a few more that have come through since then. I'm going to read you some. Eleanor from Germany, she said, I'm an American that has lived in Munich for over 25 years. I used to hate that shops were closed on Sundays. Now I am all for it, and I'll be throwing the first Molotov cocktail if that changes.
Wow.
It's a joke, she said.
Okay.
Is it though? Should we tell the police? A listener from Athens says that they want Sunday shopping to come to their city. Did you know shops weren't open in Athens on a Sunday?
I think I did know that, yeah.
Folks, that's it from us today. And actually, you won't be hearing any more from us this week because it's a bank holiday in Brussels.
You could just listen to this episode twice.
3 times even. Go into the backlog. Listen to Ian's halloumi one again. See you, folks.